In the status quo, we see many children with parents unsure to question parental authority. We view this as wrong, and today we, the government, believe that schools should teach children to question parental authority. As the first speaker, my points are point of characterization and how it prevents abuse in families, and my second speaker's argument is how it teaches them for the future. Now, on to my first point, which is my point of characterization. The case where children will question parental authority is when they are not happy with how their parents are treating them, for example, pressuring children or hitting children. It won't apply to those children who feel they are getting what they need and feel happy about their parents. We believe teaching about questioning parental authority looks like children being taught to tell their parents to stop or call for help in cases where they feel uncomfortable, and not just whenever they feel like it. We believe with the school's extensive experience with kids and knowledge that they would be able to teach this successfully. In addition to this, government has the fiat power to claim this, or otherwise the debate cannot occur fairly. The schools are also aren't teaching children to go against healthcare views and such. They'll ensure that the child will make the best decision that they are healthy, that make the best decision that they're healthy. They are teaching children to not do things that they think is uncomfortable, such as going to an activity. In schools, we can teach children about this by doing practice pretend scenarios to make sure the children know. Now, what will this look like? When children feel unhappy with parental authority, whether this is from abuse or cases where the children feel unhappy or uncomfortable, children can use the skills they learned from these classes at school to handle the issues with their parents. We believe that this is beneficial as children can tell parents what's right and wrong and tell them to stop doing certain things. It gives children a huge sense of independence and gives a feeling of happiness as they know how to deal with the parental authority. They have a sense of responsibility as they have control over their rights. In the flip side, in opposition's world, we see children getting treated wrong by parents, and the children being completely helpless. This negatively affects the children's well-being as a whole. Not only do we prevent abuse, but we cultivate an environment where children feel comfortable about speaking up to their parents when they feel they're treated wrong. It gives them their own voice to say things like, "Stop it, I don't like this," so the parents will learn. Now to my second point, which is how this prevents abuse in families. By educating children on how to deal with parental authority, this helps prevent abuse in families as a whole. This is because children now know how to stand up for themselves, and parents are also less incentivized because they know their child will stand up for themselves. Therefore, this equates to overall better parenting and a happier, more responsibly educated child. If a child really doesn't want to do something, for example, get baptized, and the parent is insistent about it, the child has the power to say no. If we compare both worlds, in opposition's world, when a child doesn't speak up at all, when a parent abuses them, the parent will,
You know why?
yes?
Uh, isn't like don't already can't children already say no and can't they already refuse?
Because if they're stuck in like an abusive environment, they feel powerless because their parent is obviously abusing them. Their parent is older than them. It's their parent. They don't feel comfortable doing this. But with these education, they feel more comfortable doing this because they've learned through these practice scenarios. Continue on my point. If we compare both worlds, an opposite world, when a child doesn't speak up at all, when a parent abuses them, the parent will continue doing this bad behavior, while children will continue feeling helpless in their situation, which can lead to bad mental health. Now, why is this important to prevent abuse in families? It is extremely vital, as if a child is being treated wrong by their parents, there is no one that can help the child. This is because the child feels they have no one to turn to, and they don't know how to stop the conflict they receive from their parents. In our world, where we believe that schools should teach children to question parental authority, the children now know how to question parental authority correctly, and the parents become more educated as well. With all the reasons stated, I'm proud to affirm the government.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and respected members of the House. Just imagine this dystopian world where children are brainwashed to question their parents' authority in their schools. They would revolt actively, especially during their adolescence, throwing the world into chaos. In order to prevent this from happening, our side, the opposition, strongly thinks that schools should not teach children to question parental authority. Before moving on to my speech, I'll reply to some arguments made by the Prime Minister. The first argument made was about how children need to make the best decisions and how they will stand up to abuse. Now, about the abusing part, I'd like to ask a question. Are those children who are helplessly being hit by their parents, are they being hit because they don't know how to stand up? No, they can't stand up. Their parents are obviously more powerful, and if they report the situation to an authority or a police, their parents will go to jail and they will be left in they'll be sent to other facilities. They do not like this. Excuse me?
Wouldn't you argue that being in another facility and getting like regular food and a place to rest and a caregiver is better than being hit by your parents every day?
Those facilities aren't that ideal as you think. Those facilities most of the time have terrible situations. They're low on funding. And that's the reason why most kids don't report their parents. And as I said, those kids aren't being hit because they don't know how to stand up. They can't stand up. And also, the PM has also mentioned about how overall there will be overall better parenting incentives. Well, if you know that your children will stand up to you every time you make a decision during their adolescence, would that lead to a better parenting? No, we're talking about adolescence. Now, I would like to move on to my speech. Firstly, the importance behind parental authority is crucial. Parental authority is the rights and responsibilities of a parent towards their children. The important thing that the proposition completely forgot was that parental authority is the rights and responsibilities. The responsibility of a parent is to contribute to their children's well-being. Such includes censoring out harmful materials, protecting children, and feeding them, and does not include abuse. Ever since children are immature, even in their teenagers, they require parental authority to survive and live a good life. They need guidance from their parents. The school's preachings to question parental authority is asking the children to try to get rid of their shields that protect them from the harmful world. And as I said, uh, the parental authority is the parents' rights and responsibilities. So the claims about abuse does not stand. Secondly, we cannot ignore the possible revolting the children can do. Teenagers are already revolting greatly against their parents and are failing to suppress their dramatic emotions. If schools, even more, encourage them to question parental authority, even if schools teach them to go against the most absurd commands made by their parents, immature teenagers who are already lacking logical thinking due to their overwhelming emotions are going to think that every suggestion that their parents make, whether or not it is for their own good, are absurd if it goes against their own will. This is actually happening during adolescence. Even adults rationalize themselves. How bad will teenagers who rely on emotion to think get? This can bring an overall chaos and revolt among teenagers who are undergoing adolescence, and the world will fall into chaos. This includes family conflicts inside the family and overall societal conflicts. Because of these two reasons, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, so first I would like to start by rebutting the opposition's case. So they have presented a rebuttal to our first speaker's point about how children will stand up to the abuse. The opposition rebutted this by saying that children are being hit because they can't stand up. We agree with this statement, and this is why we are implementing this action. These children are being hurt when they are being hit, and we need to teach them how to stand up to this abuse because they are being injured and they are being damaged. Their mental health, their physical health is both being damaged. The opposition has then presented a point about how teenagers are revolting and that schools are encouraging this behavior. We would like the opposition to acknowledge that questioning parental authority does not actually stop the action. For example, if a parent is forcing their child to go get a vaccination and the child does not want to have the vaccination, they question this parental authority. This does not mean that they don't entirely get the vaccination, because if it's something important, obviously the parent in the right mind, as the opposition has stated, they will then force this child to go get the vaccination for their own good. This does not questioning parental authority doesn't stop the action entirely, which means that this case is irrelevant. Now I will move on to my point, which is about how this teaches children for the future. So children, as they're young, they are incredibly impressionable. And it's important for us to teach them to question parental authority because it then teaches them the basis to question any authority when they are uncomfortable. As our Prime Minister has characterized, this teaches children important life skills like being able to say no and to protect themselves when necessary and when they feel uncomfortable. This is important for two reasons. So firstly, this could possibly help them escape abusive or toxic future relationships when they're older. If they're in a romantic relationship, platonic relationship that's abusive and toxic, this can help them to escape this because they have learned this from a young age during school. The second part is that it will teach them to stand up for themselves. If they're being bullied, if they're being teased, if they're uncomfortable with anything in any way, then this will actually teach them to question this and to get a responsible answer from whoever is on the other end. As well as this responsibility. Children, when they learn to say no through these programs in school, they can actually stop whatever is happening if they feel uncomfortable and to question this and to get an answer from a parent or whoever. This then gives children a sense of responsibility because they understand that they do have rights and they understand how to exercise these rights so that they feel comfortable. They also understand that they're not being forced into anything because they can question whatever is happening and get, yes.
Are you saying that children right now don't know they have rights? Like, is that what you're trying to say?
No, we're not trying to say that children right now do not have rights. We're trying to say right now that children need to understand that they have certain types of rights where they can question their parents, because children currently they do see their parents as authority figures where they see that they have to listen to whatever their parent is saying, and this means that this could negatively impact them because they feel that they're being forced into doing this and will then feel even more uncomfortable with doing this. On our case, we're teaching children that they actually do have the right to question this and not feel pressured and feel like they're going to be punished for asking a question about this. Okay, continuing on. We believe that the responsibility these programs are teaching children will be incredibly helpful for them in the future. So what should the chair believe at the end of this point? Well, the chair should believe that what these schools are teaching children on our side, the government side, is incredibly beneficial and important for children in the future because it teaches them that they have rights and that they can question this without getting incredibly punished, and how things that the schools are teaching them are incredibly important for children and teach them very important life skills for the future. Therefore, I'm proud to affirm the government. Thank you.
Clarification here. Government's model is unclear. They're not even specifying when this will be taught. And they're not even saying, they didn't even specify when they'll teach these children to question parental authority. So the government side is already on a loss, even before they even move on to the argument. So this already gives them a disadvantage. And now in my speech today, I'll do three things. Firstly, I'll rebut the PM and DPM's arguments. Then I'll rebuild the LO's arguments. And then I'll move on to our team's third and final argument, which is it's not the school's duty or obligation. So, so the DPM tried to rebut the LO's claim, saying that children are not getting hit because they don't know how to stand up. However, the LO literally already said how they do know how to stand up. It's just like the parents are exercising hard, like they do know how to stand up, but then there's they can't stand up for them because if the abusive parents will still hurt them. And so the PM tried to say how children have to the teachers have extensive knowledge and children have to tell parents how to stop. Well, this is just a generalization because there's some children who are perfectly fine with their parents and they accept how the parent is running their house and they're okay with the parents being in charge, and students can already tell parents what they want, and unless a very extreme case of an abusive scenario, but that's just a whole different case. Therefore, their point does not stand. Secondly, the DPM mentioned how people are getting hit, like they said, and they said questioning parental authority doesn't prevent the action. Well, this is exactly our side because we say there's other ways, instead of questioning these parental authorities, their point does not stand. Therefore, their point does not stand. And the LO, lastly, I'll rebuild the LO. So the LO said how parental authority is crucial, and literally in the info side, it states how parents can exercise their authority over their parents. So this does not make sense. And they said it will amplify effects, and child adolescents will keep revolting. So teaching them will just make it worse and worse. And unless the case of an extremely abusive scenario, like I mentioned earlier, his point still stands. So this is our team's third and final argument, is that this is not the school's duty and obligation. So the school should never be the ones teaching the students to question the kids and students to question parental authority. Even if people would to teach children to question parental authority, it should be their parents who tell them that they can question their decisions. And even that is is a case, but teachers, that's just ridiculous. Out of order. This is just ridiculous.
Point. POI.
Out of order. I said that. And then anyways, but like this is just ridiculous because the teachers aren't even most of the teachers aren't even parents themselves. They're like just young people who are just like educating people. Like they're just like trying to like so this like the teachers are just people who are specialized in educating. They're not even the teachers are not even like ones who like take care of parents, or they're not like young people. So even in this case, children should still be obedient to their parents because their parents have to foster them and make them into good teenagers to prepare them for their future life. And using schools to do this is literally ridiculous. They're not even the ones who like care for the child. They're not their parents. They're not their guardians. And students, school's duty is to teach students and give them good study habits, not trying to make them quote unquote rebels against their parents. Honorable Judge, propose.
I'd just like to clarify that, first of all, children questioning their parents will occur on both sides of the debate, right? A child will always question their parent. They'll be like, oh, I want to watch YouTube until now. Why can you not let me do this? Okay, so the difference is, right, we offer a world where we teach the children how to deal with this in school, where opposition actually admits that this is good, as they quote themselves say, parents should teach children to question their authority. Okay, second thing is that on the opposition side, they will do basically nothing about it, right? Because they haven't given us anything about what they will do. Also, just responding to the opposition's question about how like the schools will actually teach it, we believe in our first point about a point of characterization our first speaker brought up, they'll be able to question when they're not comfortable, and they'll be in school, which is a good environment, are experts in teaching, and is basically a place where children just learn, right? So schools are perfectly capable of teaching them this. We have two themes in this debate, right? First of all, what do parents actually have the right over their children in this case? And second of all, what is best for the child, right? Now, to my first theme, do parents have the right over their children? Now, we will win if we win this theme, as we will show you how some parents are just not capable of doing this, and there's such huge harms, and how like opposition just can't claim the benefits on their side because they aren't unique, right? So the first thing opposition really brings up under this clash is how like parents have the right, but children don't like have the right to go against their parents. But now we have two responses to this. First response is how like just the fact that some parents aren't responsible, right? Although they have the right over their children, they can't responsibly enact this, right? For example, this could look like abusing their children, hitting their children, yelling at the children, which this child does not deserve. The child deserves to grow up in a good, safe childhood. So therefore, they don't have this right if they're using the right to abuse the child, right? Second response is how like if the child asks the parent and challenges the parent responsibility and right over the child, is actually better on our side, because when a child questions the parents will give them an answer which encourages conversation between the two, therefore creating a stronger bond. So therefore it gives like a power balance within the relationship. But on their side, the parents will just get mad, the child won't do anything because the parent has this right of ownership over them, and therefore the child doesn't learn anything. So therefore we actually provide a better solution under what opposition claims to be their best case, right? So therefore at the end of this theme, we believe that we have won, as we've proved to you how there's different scenarios with rights, and our side benefits both scenarios. Now to my second theme on what is better for the children, right? Now we believe will win on this theme because children are the most important stakeholder in this debate, and how opposition can't win this theme even if they like win the other one. Okay, opposition has to lose if they lose one of the themes, right? Because their theme about the child getting the best education is contingent on the parents actually knowing how to teach the child, as we proved to you that the schools will be better at this. So therefore they lose one of the themes, they lose the whole debate, right? Okay, so now what opposition brings up under this case is first of all how like the child can't make responsible decisions and they'll just go against everything, right? Now we have two responses. This first response is how our model literally says the child will like teach the school will teach the child about like safety and things, and it's unlikely that in a really serious case where the child like is in pain and wants to go to the hospital that they'll say no to their parent bringing them to the hospital, right? So we don't believe this is such a big deal in these like huge decisions. Second response is how in the unlikely event that the child does actually say, oh no, I don't want to do this, we believe this could happen on both sides, like the example of the vaccine, right? On both sides the child could be afraid of needles and will question it. Now why do we believe that it's better on our side? It's because the parents will know that the child has actually got this fear and wants to like not do this. So they'll be able to talk it out and talk about it. But on their side, the child just has to go with whatever. And it creates this extreme power imbalance with the parent, and like the parent is forcing them to do things. Therefore, we believe that the child is actually going to be able to make responsible decisions, because like if they are really in pain and really want to do something, they obviously will, because they're like not dumb, right? Okay, so additionally opposition brings up that kids won't report like domestic abuse and stuff because they can't stand up. Now we have two responses to this. First response is opposition is doing nothing to address this. We are trying our best to address this issue, right? And we believe that they will stand up because they trust schools as a learning environment and trust what schools tell them to do, because school is their whole basis for their future and the whole basis for like their education, right? Second response is how it's likely that it's going to be a lot more better facilities if they get out of these families, as because the school is teaching about standing up to their parents, and it's becoming such a big deal as the whole education system is getting into it, it's likely that the government is going to invest more money into these kind of scenarios. So therefore, we believe that these facilities will be better for the child, and we believe that, or maybe the parents will even change as it's becoming such a big deal, right? Okay, so now why do we believe that we win under this thing? We have proved to you how, one, it's best for the child, it's safest for the child, in the best interest for the child, and second of all, how like some things that happen on both sides are actually better on our side. So we provide you better for the cases where the child is being abused, and better cases where the child isn't being abused and just wants to question something, and we provide like a cultivate a learning environment where the child and the parent can talk to each other. So therefore, I am proud to support my team's case.
Honorable Chair, our debate today hinges on whether parental authority is something that we can control from or not from engaging their child in bad habits. And today we've shown how schools teaching children to question parental authority can lead to terrible outcomes. Before I move on, let me define what parental authority is. Parental authority refers to parent rights and responsibilities toward their children. Because of parental authority, parents make decisions that affect their children's well-being. And now first, our opponents discussed that the key factor that this motion will place on the students, but it won't actually be a global problem. And now it is our responsibility as the opposition to prevent schools from teaching these weird rebelling behavior. The government does not deserve a vote judge because they fail to think about the ways that the actual passing of this motion will work and do not understand the responsibility of the schools in these cases. Fundamentally, my previous two speakers from my team argued that parents can protect children by censoring out weird information that they can find from their children. And it is because ever since children are immature, even in their teenagers, they require parental authority to survive and live a good life. And we can prove they need guidance from their parents. In addition, especially during adolescence, children revolt against their parents. So teaching them to do so will amplify the effects because teenagers are already revolting greatly against their parents and are prevailing to suppress their dramatic emotions. But if schools encourage them to question parental authority, even if schools teach them to do and go against the most absurd comments, immature teenagers who are already lacking logical thinking are going to think that even suggestions that their parents making are literally bad, which isn't factual. And lastly, it is not the school's duty or obligation. To explain, the school should never be the ones teaching the kids to question parental authority. Even if people do teach children to question parental authority and stand for themselves, this should be their parents who tell them and that they can question their decisions. Now, to move on, the government's rebuttal is very weak because they can't also prove that why this will be harmful if they listen to us, and that they will actually prove evidence for our side by saying that abuse is happening. But they still agree with us in the point that parents want to make us better people, so they are allowed to ask questions. The opponents failed to make arguments that truly showed that they should take this win. And their arguments were the characterization that children need to make the best decisions from parents who are abusing them, and that kids need to be told to stand up. And I will rebut them further in my speech. We believe that if we listen to the proposition, the whole society community will be unreasonable, unfair, and detrimental to that specific teacher or students. And however, I suppose that this is a hasty generalization because it's unrealistic and unreasonable, and they failed to actually propose more evidential clues to support their arguments. The opponents' arguments were actually very, very broad and had a lack of explanation. They provided almost no evidence to support their side of motion, which the arguments were supposed to be centered around the overall harmful situation, and had to give evidence for you to judge. Give your vote. However, this being the case, it can be said that some terrible outcomes may not happen if we listen to the opposition. Their other argument that caused them to fail was about the characterizations of the child. They explained that children are not robots and they should have freedom to stand for themselves. However, this just sounds to me that the government is encouraging students to talk back to their parents. Sure, but children are already arguing against their parents a lot of times in puberty, and the percentage of getting abused is very low, which means that we can be getting less concerned. So the majority of parents do give their children some free will. Therefore, their points does not stand. And they actually did not discuss the main factor that will harm this motion and will cause their assertions to be true. However, those assertions were very broad, as I said. In fact, it was just stated our lives should be chosen of what we showed. And then period. Finally, let's make it perfectly clear why the opposition takes the debate home. First, our honorable leader of opposition and our deputy leader of opposition argued that there was a clear understanding of why this motion should not be passed. As more description, the proposition completely forgot that parental authority is the right and responsibility for taking their child home. So therefore, we believe that the opposition takes the debate home. Thank you for listening. I'm extremely proud to oppose.
Thanks, Hopwhip. Aubrey play.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and respected members of the House, I'd like to say that the proposition has completely lost this debate. This is because our side takes all clashes home and because the proposition simply fails to respond to our speech in general. First of all, I'd like to summarize our points. Our points were that parental authority is crucial, there's a chance of children revolting, and that schools don't have the obligations and rights to teach children this. Next, I'd like to point out how some speakers of the proposition have ignored some points made by us. First, the whip speaker has ignored how our DLO claimed how if teaching children how to question their children is necessary, parents will have to do it. However, the whip speaker simply ignored the first part of the sentence and claimed how we rebutted our own point by pointing out how parents have to teach their children to stand up. There are other cases where speakers have ignored points made by the LO, but I'll skip due to time constraints. Lastly, there were two clashes in our debate. The first being whether or not this action is necessary and whether or not abuse is occurring because children don't know how to stand up. The first clash is obviously our victory, since we showed how parental authority gives positive effects to the children. And also, we also claimed how during adolescence, there is a big chance of children revolting. The opposition could not rebut to this effectively, except for saying that children need to understand they have certain rights. They do have certain rights, but they do already know how to stand up. They are standing up actively during their adolescence, and teaching them more to do so will be bad. And the second clash was about how abuse was about whether or not abuse is occurring because children don't know how to stand up. The obvious fact here is that abuse is occurring because abuse is occurring although children do know how to stand up. What will happen if they stand up? They will get hit and they will be abused. The reason why children are being abused and hit is not because they do not know how to stand up. Because of this, we take both clashes home. The proposition fails to rebut to our claims. Because of this, we do win this debate. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
The negatives burden in this case to win this case is that they have to prove why parents can actually help their child the best. So one of their main pushes for this is that they're claiming that parental authority is incredibly amazing and it's good, and this is why they shouldn't question it. They have stated, they have repeatedly stated, parents have rights, they have responsibility, and they've continued to state this throughout this, even though we have proven that some parents don't enact this responsibility. As well as this, we have rebutted and talked about abuse, which they have just pushed away. Just the chance for abusive controlling parents, even if it is a low chance, is just too harsh not to fix, as the effects are extremely big and detrimental. The opposition provides no solution. And this is one of the main parts of the debate, because children who are in these situations are the most vulnerable and the most effective. Therefore, we cannot accept the opposition's principle at the risk for the child being harmed. As well as this, they try to prove that on their side, the child will be helped. And this is contingent on every single parent in the entire world being kind, which we have proven are not because of our point of abuse, which they have not provided sufficient response for. Even if the chair does not believe that, here is how the child is helped more on our side. We offer three things. Firstly, the school, which is a safe environment for the child to learn about this in. Secondly, long-term benefits, where this child understands they have rights and can question this authority, and how they gain confidence and can stand up for themselves. Thirdly, we provide them a solution and a way and knowledge about how to leave a harmful environment if they're feeling uncomfortable. Therefore, at the end of this, we have disproved the opposition's main push, and we have proved why our benefits are better. The opposition also does not offer any opportunity for the child to learn, as we have proven. Majority of parents, although they are kind, there are a portion of parents who are not kind and not understanding, and they cannot and do not have the knowledge to teach children about this, since they're not as educated as schools. Therefore, we win this debate. Therefore, I'm proud to propose.